So the Grandmaster Nightfall for this week is the Glassway strike, which by the way, I love this strike. I love how difficult it is. I love it's one of those strikes that it makes people question why they even attempt Grandmasters to begin with. Now, I wouldn't say Glassway is the hardest strike anymore. At one time, I would actually put it up there as like the hardest, along with like the Corrupted. But since Lightblade, I actually think Lightblade may be the most difficult Grandmaster Nightfall. With that being said, this is a Nightfall that's still in the top 3 of difficulty, and that will still eat your lunch if you don't have the right builds. Today, guys, we're going to be going over ways to do this Nightfall, primarily the builds that we were using today, most notably my Stasis turret build. By the way, if you hear us say Stacy, that's just our nickname for our turrets. But with this particular build, and the reason why I like using it, especially in this Nightfall, is that it just secures lanes, especially in that final room, right? When you get into this final room, fellas, and you've got champions pouring out, wyverns pulling out, and they're coming from all directions, nothing will secure you better than placing a turret in each one of these alleys to at least lock the enemies outside. Now, first, let me start with my build. I am taking advantage of the exotic gauntlets Osmiomancy gloves. These come with the perk Fervent Cold Snap, where your Cold Snap grenades have an additional charge, recharge faster on impact, and have increased secret travel distance. Now, I am not using it for the Cold Snap grenades itself. Instead, I am converting this to stasis turrets with Bleak Watcher. And essentially having 2 grenade charges up at all times means I pretty much always have 2 turrets at the ready. Now, I also like to combine this with the Aspect Glacial Harvest. Again, freezing targets will create these stasis shards around the frozen targets. And of course, higher tier combatants create more of these shards. Now, the reason why this combination is so good is that whenever I actually throw a turret out there and it starts to freeze opponents, it creates those stasis shards. Now, those stasis shards are actually able to offer me lots of benefits, especially when combined with certain elemental well mods. One of them being elemental shards, where our stasis shards count as stasis elemental wells. Now, this offers a host of benefits. A, it actually feeds into my recharge rate of my abilities. B, when I pick up one of these stasis shards, considering it now counts as an elemental well, if I happen to be rocking elemental charge, I become charged with light. Now, back in the day, we would actually just take advantage of charge with light for protective light, right? But considering that protective light has actually been nerfed, we're going to be taking advantage of firepower. Now, firepower states that you regain a portion of your grenade energy when you use your grenade, consuming 1 stack of charge with light. The beautiful thing about firepower is that it stacks. And in this situation, I'm actually rocking 3 firepower mods. So again, I throw a stasis turret out there. It pops up, freezes targets, and then upon freezing targets, it creates these stasis shards that then feeds me charged with light, thus cycling more grenade energy back for even more stasis turrets. Now, the fragment combination here is the final kicker that makes this build nasty. First up, we've got Whisper of Torment, where you gain grenade energy each time you take damage from targets. We also have Whisper of Shards, where shattering stasis crystal temporarily boosts your grenade recharge rate, and shattering additional stasis crystal increases the duration of this benefit. This is obviously really nice when killing frozen targets. We're also using Whisper of Conduction, where nearby stasis shards track to your position. Again, I don't even have to go out of my way to get these shards. They just track right to me. And on top of that, you get the added benefits of like +10 resilience and +10 intellect. And the final fragment there is Whisper of Durance, where slow from your abilities lasts longer. Overall, guys, there were multiple times throughout this Grandmaster Nightfall where I would have 2 to even 3 stasis turrets up. Normally in the past, we would actually say that the entire team needed to rock stasis and Bleak Watcher and just all have stasis turrets covering every single area to keep everything locked down and frozen. But now, with Osmiomancy and this particular build, you really just need 1 person on your team doing this. Now, considering only one of us actually has to rock these stasis turrets, this leaves the rest of the team open to use pretty much whatever. But considering this week and the modifiers that we have in place, one of them is increased void damage. So both Les and Bombad were taking advantage of Void 3.0. Now, Bombad's build was pretty decent. He had like Boots of the Assembler, which was like giving us some extra bit of health, which is nice. He was also rocking things like Arbalest, Reckless Oracle, Threaded Needle, and pretty much your other general things like Child of the Old Gods, Feed the Void. Fragments would include things like Echo of Expulsion, Obscurity, Persistence, and Undermining. Now, you're probably wondering, why was he using Obscurity? Well, he was actually rocking Lucent Finisher, and he would actually go for finishes, and this, of course, would give us heavy ammo. He was also taking advantage of Overload Grenades, as there is a ton of Overload champions in this Nightfall. Now, Les's build was very good, primarily because he was rocking Divinity. Guys, considering the amount of Overload champs in this Nightfall, you may want to really consider using Divinity in your loadouts. Now, a couple of reasons why Divinity was so good here. Number 1, you have all the shields in this Nightfall nightfall. So having someone dealing arc damage is really, really nice. But also because when you combine Divinity with linear fusion rifles that are doing precision damage and they're void linear fusion rifles like Threaded Needle, my God, we were doing so much damage. We were absolutely pooping all over Overload champions. My only suggestion is do not place a stasis turret next to an Overload champion, because as you freeze that champion, that freeze would actually result in the champion becoming unstunned. Therefore, it takes forever to deal with those Overload champions. So where you want to place your stasis turrets throughout the entire nightfall is mainly around groups of ads, right? Stun them, not the Overload champions. The Overload champions, you want to immediately get a Divinity on them and just shred them. Now, Les was also rocking the new exotic armor piece, Secant Filaments. And fellas, these are like low-key meta. First up, they come with the perk Devouring Rift, where casting an Empowering Rift will grant you Devour. And that damage dealt by you and your allies from within that Empowering Rift will disrupt combatants. That's right, guys. Any damage done while in that Empowering Rift will stun an Overload champion. Again, it's not gauntlets that we use every single week because we're not always dealing with Overload champions, but by God, are they good. Like, really good. Now, Les was also rocking Lucent Finisher and Overload grenades as well, considering he's also rocking Void 3.0. The only difference here is that for his aspects, he was doing Child of the Old Gods and Chaos Accelerants. And the reason why he was doing that is because he's already being granted Devour when he would cast his Empowering Rift. So he's already getting it. So he's using Chaos Accelerant to cook his grenade even longer. And the fragments that he was using was Undermining to weaken targets, Echo of Persistence to allow his Devour to last even longer, and Echo of Remnants, where his Vortex grenades would have increased duration. Now, weapon choice wise, I could have gone a different route with my primary weapon. Everybody was ragging me about using this Come to Pass, which by the way, we are going to be reviewing here soon. I have a lot more love for this weapon than what you guys are giving it credit for. Everybody was like, yo, that weapon is garbage, Cross. Listen, it's much better than what you're saying it is, okay? I'm not saying it's the best, but it's not that bad. The other weapon I was using outside of Threaded Needle was Witherhoard. Guys, there are certain nightfalls where Witherhoard shows its true value. This is one of those nightfalls, and it's primarily because when you're in the boss room and you are dealing damage to the boss, he has his rotating shield going around him, right? Extremely aggravating. Also, considering that void damage is increased in this nightfall, he will poop on you very quickly if you just step out even slightly. But you know the beautiful thing about Witherhoard? You don't even have to place the shot directly on this boss. Matter of fact, you can just put the shot right on the shield and it would still do tick damage to the boss. This will allow you to pretty much stay in cover the entire time and do damage from safety. And again, whoever's rocking weakening grenades on your team, they can still apply debuffs. You can still sit in an Empowering Rift and get that increase in damage. All of that stuff while you're placing these Witherhoard shots. Outside of that, I think Witherhoard is one of the best weapons to pair with stasis turrets because, again, you're locking targets in place. Dude, drop a Witherhoard shot and then proceed to let it do its job. Now, let's talk real quick on how to do this nightfall effectively. Again, all the modifiers that you normally see, barrier champions and overload champions in this nightfall. You're also going to be tasting the rainbow as far as shields go. But the nightfall opens up and you sparrowing down into this cavern, and you're going to have an overload champion and a number of ads meet you. I normally like to just put a stasis turret down right here at the front and go in and just start freezing up the ads and then deal with the overload champion. Upon dealing with that overload champion, you'll have some ads behind them along with some shanks that spawn up. Deal with these guys, and then you're going to proceed to move forward and drop down. When you drop down, the placement of your stasis turret is really important. I actually like to place it kind of close to where we're sitting, which is like behind this rock. Now, the reason why I like it here is that it's not going to be going after the overload champion immediately. Instead, it's going to be hitting up all the surrounding ads, including the ads that are rushing us, because you'll have some invis vandals coming straight for you, or at least I think they're invis. I don't know. We don't have radar, so it gets kind of crazy. But deal with an overload champion in this room as well as the barrier champion, and you'll move into the next area. Now, this next area, you're going to have an overload champion as well as a boss or a mini boss spawn in. Deal with that overload champion and then proceed to keep doing damage to that warrior's enforcer. Now, again, the beautiful thing about this Stacy build, dude, you're just raining turrets everywhere. You can see right there, guys, where my abilities are coming back so fast, getting one turret after another and just placing them all over the place, locking these enemies in. This is also a great time to get a finish off on one of these champions, that be the barrier champion, to just top off heavy ammo for your teammates. And again, the beautiful thing, if you wanted to take this route of providing heavy ammo for your teammates, you can double stack Lucent Finisher with Aeon Gauntlets, and that will give you not only heavy ammo for yourself, but give 2 ammo bricks for your teammates. Now, upon dealing with these guys, you'll move to this next area. And I would say this room can be kind of a problem area if you don't chain things correctly. I normally like to open up with a stasis turret just right in the thick of things. Immediately deal with that overload champion. And then normally you can like pop a super because by this point you have a super. So whether it's a Nova Bomb, a Tether, or in my case, Shadebinder, I just go around and start killing ads with it. You'll also have that mini boss there in the middle. Deal with him. And again, Divinity did such a good job of just opening up that crit for us and allowing us to get maximum damage. And that maximum damage tacked on to the increased void damage that we're dealing, our threaded needles was doing so much damage, especially if you got one with Vorpal, right? Now, upon dealing with that barrier champion, you'll move to this area. You'll have some dregs out here in the open and then keep pushing all the way through. And you'll have this really open cavern. Now, this area, you've got a number of ads that are pouring out. Normally, I like to throw a stasis turret over there if I didn't throw it off the cliff every time. And it just freezes ads as it's coming out. And then we go up to the right side. Then when we come up the right side, an overload champion is normally sitting there waiting for us, but sometimes he's down low. Sometimes he just literally walks right off the map. And then sometimes he can like reappear. Just be ready to deal with that champion. You'll then move up, deal with a number of other vandals and ads here, and you'll have another overload champion to deal with. Again, another opportunity to go ahead and get a finish off and provide heavy ammo for your teammates. And then you'll have some vandals up top, which by the way are pretty damn good shots, so be very, very careful. This is also a great opportunity to remember to rock thermal shock plating, as this will keep you alive. I know a lot of you are like, Cross, why don't you rock void resist, considering the increase in void damage that you're receiving? I wish that helped, but it doesn't. Considering the void splash damage that so many things in this Nightfall does, I pretty much felt like I was always getting one hit kill. So in the least, let me protect myself from the arc damage that these Fallen are dealing. Now this room is kind of a hectic room because you're having to capture this plate. You'll want to step on and pretty much step right off, guys. And every time you step on and a wave of ads spawn, just back off. You do not have to sit on this plate the entire time. Take your time. Normally I like to actually throw down a stasis turret right there in the middle of it and let that turret deal with all the ads that are spawning in. But step back, deal with the ads, step back on the plate again to spawn the next set of ads, and just keep doing that over and over until you complete the draining of this Radiolarian fluids. Now, when you actually complete the drain, I don't want you guys to move at all. I actually want you to look right down low. And sometimes there's an overload champion that spawns on the left. Sometimes the champion spawns on the right. Regardless, whoever your divinity user is needs to go ahead and instantly stun that overload champion, and you deal with that overload champion before you even take a step off of that plate. Upon dealing with that champion, you can then move up, deal with all the trash ads, and then move up to the second level, which will have some more ads spawning in, as well as a shank in the back, a heavy shank that is, and a barrier champion. Now, this is kind of an aggravating part because sometimes you'll have the barrier champion, it'll drop down low and it'll be granted immunity to everything. And on top of that, you have snipers above you that are trying to kill you. Definitely want to deal with the snipers first, guys. Take your time. And then upon dealing with the snipers and making sure you're not going to get popped from up top, then move up and deal with this barrier champion. Now, upon dealing with that barrier and the snipers at the end, you'll then push into the boss room. Now, this boss room opens up with an overload champion and ads here at the front. Deal with the ads first, leave the overload champion up, just stun him, and then proceed to just deal with this overload champion in a 1v3 and get a finish off. This is a great way to go ahead and top off some of your ammo before entering the actual boss phase of this Nightfall. Now, in the past, we used to just bunker down right there in the middle and literally just throw stasis turrets up everywhere and wait for everything to come at us. But honestly, we found it much easier today to just shred some of these champions before they even got to us, especially considering we're rocking Divinity. Les would actually run over here to the left, and his overload champion that spawns right at the beginning here, he would stun and we would open up with linear shots and at least deal with one of these champions. This means we only have to deal with one other champion. We don't have this issue of a champion appearing out of nowhere, either from our left or from our right, until more, of course, spawn in. Now, in the middle, after you've already placed your stasis turret there, it'll already start putting in work. It'll be freezing that Transcendent Hydra, and normally there's going to be an overload champion in this middle section as well. And you'll deal with them as well as the ads behind them. And the Hydra itself, once you do a third of its damage, it'll back off and actually TP away. And it'll even say it right there that the Transcendent Hydra takes to the void. Now, at the same exact time, overload champions will spawn in. Normally, I like to actually throw my stasis turret right back there in the middle and just kind of aggro them right there to the middle, right? And I know I said earlier, like, you don't want to freeze overload champions, but sometimes you got to. It's just a means of survival, right? Yes, the damage is kind of annoying sitting there trying to damage them while they're getting frozen, but at least your team is still alive. Take this this moment, though, get some stuns off, open up some supers, some Nova bombs right here, and deal with these champions as quickly as you can. Now, this is when you want to go ahead and start doing damage to the boss after you've cleared all these guys out. You'll do a third of the damage there to the Transcendent Mine. And again, popping these Witherhoard shots was doing beautiful work here to Belmont. Now, upon knocking down a third of its health, it too will take to the Void, and in its place will be the Transcendent Hydra and other Vex reinforcements. Now, again, go to the left side, and you're going to see this Wyvern spawn in, and just like you did with the Overload Champion, immediately gun down this Wyvern. I know it doesn't get stunned, but if you open up with Divinity on it, open up that crit, and then start hitting it with Threaded Needle, it's amazing how quickly you can kill this Wyvern. At the same time, still have your stasis turret there in the middle, as it'll be locking down not only the Transcendent Hydra, but the other Wyvern that's there in the middle. Now, be very careful here, because there's also going to be another Hydra that sometimes sneaks you from the left or the right. And then, of course, you'll still have that one there in the middle. Again, that's exactly why we told you to deal with the Wyvern there on the left first, as man, they can just be showing up out of nowhere. On top of that, it's really hard to push them out there because there are barrier hobgoblins, 4 of them, that are just chilling out there. But upon dealing with these Wyverns, pop your supers if necessary, freeze them, whatever you got to do. Again, you can freeze Wyverns all day long, and that is no problem. It's not like they're going to be getting their health back or they're going to become unstunned. You can freeze them back to back to back. So I highly advise taking advantage of Stacy as often as you can with these Wyverns. But then you're going to start dealing with these barrier champions out here. And normally we would actually run out there and just kill every single one of the champions except one, and then go to get the finish off on that last one, just to top off some more ammo for ourselves. Now, upon killing that last champion, you'll see that Belmont, the Transcendent Mine, emerges from the void. You're going to run to that left side yet again, stun the Overload champion coming out of the portal, and immediately gun this guy down. Again, the same thing we did the wave before. Have the stasis turret in the middle, deal with that Overload champion and all the ads out here, and then proceed to get Belmont's health down to his final third. Now, once you get him about half health, he'll actually spawn in 2 more champions. These are going to be 2 more overloads. And again, this is where Divinity and these linear shots really are key, man. You can go ahead and just stun them while they are outside. You'll also have another overload champion come in from one of the sides, deal with that guy, and then proceed to deal with all the ads. You'll continue doing damage to the boss until its final third, and it will take to the void yet again. And then upon dealing with all the ads outside, then the Transcendent Hydra and Belmont both will emerge from the void. Now, honestly, guys, you just want to just back all the way up, get inside, deal with that Transcendent Hydra as it comes closer. You'll have a number of champions that spawn outside, as well as some Wyverns that are pushing you on the inside. Same thing that happened earlier, guys. You really just want to lock them all with your stasis turrets. And again, this is where our build is so beneficial here. Now, when you place these stasis turrets, you really do want to place them not necessarily completely outside, but almost like a foot outside and inside. That way, the turret can be utilized both on anything that pushes the inside of you from either side, or just that middle outside alley. But upon dealing with these Wyverns, you'll probably see that you have a number of barrier champions outside. Now, guys, you do not have to kill these champions. The best way to deal with these champions is just to throw a stasis turret out there and let it do damage to each one of these champions. What this will allow you to do is that the moment you kill the boss, it will actually say that the champions are defeated due to the damage you dealt to them, and this will still give you platinum. Now, there were times we did not do damage to all the champions outside, and we only got gold. So I do advise everyone getting some shots off on all the barrier champions if you don't have a stasis turret out there. But guys, whoever it is rocking that stasis turret, just drop a couple of those turrets out there, let them do damage to the barrier champions. This will actually ensure that you get platinum when you kill the boss, and just sit inside, continue doing Witherhoard shots on the boss, and you'll eventually get the kill. Overall, guys, this is not a fast nightfall. Be expecting somewhere around 20 to 25 minutes per completion. The good thing is that this is a double loot nightfall. It is dropping Silicon Nueroma, which is a sniper rifle that people are deeming to be the best PvP sniper rifle in the game. We will be reviewing it this week, especially in its adept form. It was also a very popular sniper rifle, even way back when, with its static roll. So I'm excited to see how it performs now. With that being said, though, guys, this is a nightfall that is challenging, but with the right builds and the right setup, you can beat this nightfall. Well, fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching, and as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.